All right, another very interesting session. Maybe we stumbled all upon the situation where we have like a huge Fiori launchpad setup, and we are having like Excel files and everything to manage which role is having which catalog, which tiles and everything. And Greg just created, together with his team, I guess, he created an awesome tool that will help us to manage this. So, Greg, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Welcome. Thanks Flexo and SAP for having me. It's a pleasure and great opportunity to share ideas. So thank you for that. All right, so who's been implementing SAP Fiori Launchpad in their projects? Yeah, I know you. Yeah. Okay, so it's fine. Means that's going to be interesting. Who made it like for more than 100 apps in Launchpad? At least one. Okay. Right, so this is where the challenge begins. Yeah, so if you are implementing Fiori Launchpad and setting up apps, choosing the apps, and then setting up catalogs, roles, and groups, and the amount of apps is we are talking about a handful under the 100 apps, then it's not a big challenge. The problem starts with if you have over 100. This is like huge organizational problem, which is usually tackled as you mentioned with the Excel spreadsheets. So numerous Excel spreadsheets covering what applications should be assigned to which catalogs, to which groups, and then later to roles. That's exactly the issue that we had as a team on one of our first S/4HANA implementations. We had an implementation with over 800 apps, over 100 catalogs, over 100 users. So tracking and deciding how those applications are grouped, and then through roles exposed to the users was a huge challenge. It was taking basically weeks, I can say, for meetings, endless meetings, sharing, exchanging Excel spreadsheets, first making those spreadsheets. And this is something which was calling for a Fiori application, for an easy application that could gather all this. So basically, as I said, that was the case. I will come back to that slide. This is what you end up with. Those who went through implementations of hundreds of apps are familiar with that. Usually one spreadsheet is per area. So this is like just the finance, and this is just showing the fraction. Of course, this goes out of sync. This gets the information gets obsolete after a time. It's hard to tie that up. What makes it difficult is that there are several parties which are involved in deciding how to first what apps to choose and then how to group them. So those are usually functional experts. Of course, as Fiori developers or as SAP wants to call them UX leads, and then the basis who is actually provisioning the changes in the system. So functional consultants, they usually have their own understanding what SAP Fiori designer expects from them, which is not necessarily what actually later can be implemented. So taking that into account and then deciding that we don't want to spend time on meetings, discussing, explaining, we said, okay, we're going to create a Fiori application which will collect all this, keep the linkage between them, force the users to follow the rules, exactly force all the parties involved in the project to put the information, put the data, the records on apps, catalogs, and groups in a way that Fiori designer really expects it. So we created a tool. The tool is called Fiori Tracker. It's a documentation tool. So the main purpose is to document what you are about to implement, those 800 apps grouped, how they should route, and then later also maintain it. Because one challenge is to decide what you want to implement, but in an agile approach and in general, you have to later maintain it. So the groups are changing. You have additions, you have deletions, you are moving around the apps. This still needs to be documented, and then you have to have a way to compare what you plan to implement with what is actually in the system. So the tool lets you quickly create, navigate your documentation, and then additional function is to compare it with what's actual system configuration. There is a tool, some of you probably know who were implementing SAP Fiori Launchpad. There is a tool called Fiori Launchpad Content Manager, which SAP recently developed. This is only the part which shows what is actually in the system, lets you make the mass changes, lets you look at the contents, what is already in the system. What Fiori Tracker does, it gives you one place when you have so-called to-be state. So it's like on the side of project management tool. Okay. What it gives more? What it gives you more? So once the records are created, you have they stay linked with the catalogs. So you have consistent linkage between roles, catalogs. They don't go out of sync like in case of the Excel spreadsheets. And then you can you can connect it with, enrich it with any other information like change requests, comments, issue requests. You can imagine that there are a lot of things that you would like to keep together with the apps when you are in the process of implementation or maintaining the SAP system. So this way you have one consistent reference point. Everybody can access it. Not only we found out, because we had this, of course, with our first customers, but also we just published the app so everybody can install it. So of course we are not charging for the app. The app is free for download from GitHub, so everybody can install it. So those customers who installed it, they also found that this is very useful information for other parties which are outside of projects. The whole GRC, the organization, the auditors, when they want to see what is the scope of the apps. Yeah, this is this is like the one of the surprising realities in the project. When you ask the customer, "Are you aware what is the scope of the project in terms of the apps that there are implemented?" Many customers cannot answer that question. The team is big, everybody is implementing something, configuring some apps are being deployed, custom apps are being made, but there is no complete list which says, okay, this is the scope that we delivered. This is, I don't know, 800, 1,000. There are customers who had close to 2,000 applications, not only Fiori apps. Of course, with the Fiori Launchpad, you can have also classic apps and other classic sub GUI apps, other applications, but including those, close to 2,000. So you can say definitely that this is okay, the list of the apps that we've implemented. We are maintaining those apps. There are no other apps that should be in scope. Okay, so that's the main function. How it works from the architectural point of view. You can install it on any sub gateway. So minimal requirements is a sub gateway system. Our recommendation for the setup is to put it on the solution manager. This is if you are the customer or the user of Fiori Tracker wants to use it the best way, then it should be in the central system on sub solution manager in order to be able to compare your to-be state with as is in your whole landscape. This is especially useful when you are starting the implementations and the systems are not installed yet, or you have only one system installed. You don't have yet production system. If you put the Fiori Tracker on one of the systems which are undergoing some maintenance, upgrade, whatever, then of course it would affect how the tool itself functions. So the best recommendation is to keep it on the solution manager. From solution manager, there are plugins that you install into the systems that you want to monitor, and then you can see, okay, what are the contents, what apps are installed, what actually is in the groups and catalogs and roles and so on. Good. I want to explain a bit more about available functions in the Fiori Tracker. Later on, I will show in the next step, I will show, hopefully it will work, our demo system or development system, so the real how tool works actually. And then if we still have time, I will go through some use cases when it's useful to have Fiori Tracker, when it makes the best use of it, when the user can make the best use of it. Go ahead, ask questions. That would be better if you have any questions. We have a small audience, so it's fine. So if anything pops to your mind, just go ahead and ask. It's better to answer the questions than just to follow what I usually talk. Okay. Functions. The details of each app are type dependent. You have different types of the apps. Of course, you have standard Fiori apps. Then you have apps, SAP GUI classic apps. You can have custom SAP GUI apps exposed through Launchpad. And then Fiori custom apps, which are extensions of standard apps and apps totally custom made from the scratch apps, Fiori apps. So you have different types of apps. And depending on that, the view that you see for the details is different. So it takes Fiori Tracker takes into consideration what is the type of the application, and then this screen has certain tweaks. For example, here we are on this screenshot, we have a standard Fiori app, so there is a link to Fiori library, which wouldn't make sense if you would have a custom app. You have, that's basically the main thing when it comes to those apps. You wouldn't have that for others, other type of applications. Type specific, direct links for connected catalogs. So you can see, okay, this application might be present in several different catalogs. This is also the advantage throughout Excel. If you have you can have one entry, one line in the Excel, and then you can mark, okay, this belongs to those catalogs. This can be somehow modeled in the Excel. But then you have to connect it to the roles. And then certain catalogs, they are placed can be in the number of roles. And then it gets tricky. Then you have to put it in another spreadsheet and so on. With a Fiori app, it's of course, if it is, of course, much easier. So you can drill down, you can go into details of the catalog, the role, and so on. Okay.
Do you also create the role from the application, or is the role created via standard EFCG and then it appears in the application?
No, not yet. There is no provisioning. It is possible. We are, of course, developing the app. The functions are changing. Currently, there is no creation, so you have to do it manually. So you just, but underway. Yeah, it's underway. We are also open for contributions. So, in this forum, yeah, I encourage and invite if anyone wants to help us developing it. Then of course we are happy to cooperate. Also, not yet there, but this is about to happen. We want to have it as a platform which has already simple ways for extending so-called info records. I will explain it later. So you can easily extend and add your functionality to Fiori Tracker without touching the core. And then you can have very specific functionalities which are just using the records of application catalogs and roles. And then customers or consulting companies, because of course they are also taking the Fiori Tracker and using by themselves, they can develop their own specific, which might not be public anymore. They want to make a difference. They want to be specific. They want to keep it to themselves. So we want to enable that. And then, I don't know, they can even commercialize their own modules, which they will add using the platform. Right, so that's how the main function looks like. Yeah, there is automatization involved. So, for example, naming convention. Yeah, in our first project, every functional expert came with its own naming convention, and then it's really hard to, when you're maintaining the, for example, catalogs, and you are in the Fiori Launchpad Designer, which is not so friendly tool. It's really hard to find those custom apps if you are not following the naming convention. Fiori Tracker enforces, so if they want to create any new catalog, rename it, so on, they have to follow the set naming convention. So this is enforced by the app. Yeah, so tweaks like that. Also, as is information, I said about it, so you can configure your system in the landscape and then see what is actually the contents or the name of the catalogs there are in a particular system, or whether there is a difference between the development environment, quality, and production, and so on. Okay, so another example. What we found challenging, and what was one of the first factors that we had in over a year ago in the project, was also clarity on responsibility. So 1,000 apps, and then someone came up with an idea to include the app into the scope, and then we would need to know who is responsible for that particular app. So this is something that we covered with areas which later in the Fiori Tracker configuration have linkage to a specific user. So each record has an area assignment, and then you can derive who is responsible for that particular object. So then if someone comes, okay, there is an issue with an app that was introduced by the lead from the P2P area, then it's clear that he's responsible. Okay, this is his responsibility. Tracking progress. You are in the middle of the project, and you want to see, as a PMO, project manager, whoever is in charge of the project, okay, what is the project split between the areas? You don't want to see the whole 2,000 apps. You want to see, okay, how is finance progressing? How is logistics, and so on. Okay, there are, of course, once you have those records collected, you can easily check if there are any inconsistencies. For example, if there are catalogs without any apps. Yes, those kind of. There are certain more I can remember at the moment, but there are certain like obvious mistake that could be made if you are making it in a traditional way. So then it's easy to put those health check report and then see, okay, we are having some inconsistencies. We should maybe do something about them. Okay, let's see. So okay, so this is a role which has all the, because Fiori Tracker, I said it's a platform, so it's also a set of applications. So there are different applications depending on what the user with particular role wants to do. So we have predefined. Here I'm showing all of them, but when you install it from the GitHub, you will get the roles for tester, for Fiori UX lead, for the project manager from the basis, and then they have just a subset of those apps which you can see here. So for example, I don't know, project manager might be interested only in the list of the apps, but he's not necessarily interested in other details. There are some administrative applications, so some of them allow you to edit the contents of the data of the tables for the applications, catalogs, and roles. Some only allow you to view the details. Okay, so let's start the first application, which shows you app list. So you can see all your apps in the system. You can search. You can search for the app. Okay, for example, yeah. Let's take the standard app. Okay, There are two following that. There is an ask you type suggestion, which is really useful. You immediately see whether something is in scope. Let's say, I'm already talking about some use cases. Let's say user is asking, okay, I have an issue with an app during the testing or whatever. I can immediately see, okay, is this app already actually in scope, or this is something that, I don't know, user came up with because they were discussing something which is like work in progress. So you can quickly go. These are the details. Yeah, so you can quickly, for example, already see the library entry. It takes the version into consideration, the version that you have of your S/4HANA, so it shows you the entry for this particular version. Okay, so here are the details, the linkages. This particular app is not linked. It's maybe not the best example to any catalogs, but you would see catalogs, roles that it is connected to, as is information, and info records, different info records which you can attach to your application entry. So here is the area which will be open for development, so anyone can add. We have now customer who has like really big GRC organization, and they have wild ideas what they want to keep together with the apps in order to check security and compliance and so on, whether they are compliant with certain rules. So they have a number of records. We would never put them into a core Fiori Tracker because no other customer would be interested in that, or maybe a fraction of customers would be interested, and that would make it very complicated. They can make an own info record, or we can make it for them, and then it's going to be stored here, and they're going to see it. So history is important. This is something you want to have in Excel. You see when the app was created. This really cuts time on discussions and so on. Like in the agile projects, you have some late changes. Some apps are really introduced in the end of the project, and then nobody remembers. Okay, this is some late change which wasn't tested. We just like it's there for 2 days, and then they already expect to work to make that it's testable, that it works, but it was introduced just recently. So you can clearly see, okay, this app was included in scope on this particular date. It needs testing, it needs so on, some additional activities before you can expect it to work. Another nice feature, sign-offs. This is also customizable, so you can type of sign-offs you can make by yourself. But this is like phases that you want to each Fiori Launchpad content record to go through. So you can tell, okay, I expect that this app catalog role goes through unit testing, integration testing, will go in UAT and so on, and I want to record the fact that that this particular phase was signed off. So this is really also a huge area of responsibility and saved us countless hours, if not days. So once the change is introduced, even if it's a change of the catalog, then before we move it to a production, someone who is assigned needs to say, okay, I'm signing off this part, and I'm confirming that that was done actually. So I have a record that it was at least unit tested, at least once started. Imagine you have over 1,000 apps. So it's easy to forget that new app that was just introduced, it was never tested. And then the users come in and they say, okay, it doesn't work at all. So how come? Yeah. So you have a date of sign-off. This is recorded and the record is kept. Provisionings, you can have also, there is a transaction to configure that. You can have types of provisioning, so you can say, okay, I want to record the fact that this was imported to, the change with this app was imported, and I'm signing this off. Free text for comments, anything can come here. Change requests. Oh, this is a nice feature. This is not just a field. It will, if you come with the change request, then automatically those sign-offs get invalidated. So you will get the question here when I saved, okay, there are some sign-offs. So those sign-offs, okay, it's a development system, so it didn't pop up, but it should tell you, okay, there are sign-offs which now are invalidated, and you have to go through them again. This is another practical topic during the project. The app was already tested, but then in the end, you've made some changes to it. And then everybody forgets, okay, it's a new change in the system. You have to go through at least start it once, at least test it, check it, and so on. And someone also is responsible for that. So tracking this will be invalidated, and then the test has to be done again. This helps everyone, not only UI5 developers, because in the end, there is a basis team which needs to import this, and then they also will ask for the proof, okay, is this ready for go live? Another nice feature, okay, the info records can be system dependent. So those were general records, but there are some records which are system dependent, and then you can configure your system in the landscape and then say, what is the specific value for that system? One of the topics, one of the info records was test users. You are making custom app, and then or extension, even a standard app, you need to test it. And then the first question is, what is the user that has the role with this app? Yeah, this is common. And then usually there are some generic users. The roles, you can have number of roles, 100 roles in average S/4HANA implementation. So you probably have 100 test users. You have to know the passwords of them and so on. So then, okay, I want to test this app. With which user I should test it, and what is the password for that user? So this becomes handy at that time. Okay. Let's see as is information. So same for the catalogs. We can see from the catalog point of view, okay, there is a catalog which has those apps. Of course, as I said, you can drill down here. So I'm immediately going to an app level. And there is a nice feature here, which shows you also throughout the different types of contents, what are the apps and what is their assignment. User is not assigned here, but you can see your applications to catalogs to roles. As is, I wanted to show this. This one is not existing. I think that one is. Okay. Okay, so this is how as is works. Through the plugin here, this is the scenario when from the central system through the plugin, through RFC connection, data is pulled down, and for this particular catalog with that name, it reaches to a system with a system ID dev and pulls out what is the actual contents of this catalog, and then you can compare. Okay, this is what we planned. This is what actually is in the system. Nice feature is that you can import, so you can what is already configured. You can put it into the documentation, so you can import all the entries, so you don't have to put them manually. If you have already configured and then just want to document it, then it's really straightforward. You just use the import function. Business catalogs, and same for roles. Similar screen. Also drill down. Like the header information, more or less the same. Of course, there are some specific details, but Here you can see also how they are connected, and the same info records, history, provisioning, and so on. Test users, you can have test users for the role. You want to test not only the app, you want to, you have a certain role and you want to test it, then you will be also interested what test users are with that role. Okay, and once you have this central entry, there are like numerous things that you can do with it. Once the data is there, one of the use cases also proved to be useful. Report on setup progress. You are in the process of implementing, and you implemented it partly, and now PMO wants to know what apps are implemented, which are not. Then you can easily, for the whole set, export. There is an export button. All list of the apps to an Excel spreadsheet, and then one of the attributes is the last sign of type, which was made with the date. So you can easily see, okay, those apps were already tested, provisioned, whatever. Those are still pending. And then you can clearly see, okay, out of 1,500 are tested at the moment. So you have live view of what's happening in the system, in a project implementation. That's one of the cases. Test users, I spoke about it. Usage. I missed one slide here, but we have, based on the database, there is an app called App Usage Report, which is also a functionality that is missing in SAP. You don't get to see what applications are being started in a system. So you don't have this for the Fiori apps. Once we have a list of the records with a small Launchpad plugin, this information gets collected, and we can see, okay, what are the most frequently used apps in your system. From this level, you can see this is of course system dependent. So you will have a different. Okay, this is wrong. I'm showing now missing apps. Sorry. Application usage is here. Yeah. So you can see what applications are being used, and you can quickly see the documentation. Okay, that's my most popular app. This is how many times it was started. Those are top users who are using it. You can see this per area. So another use case would be, okay, what is our crucial app in finance at the moment? Okay, there are no assignments to finance. Let's see, P2P, I guess it should be. What is our, okay, it's a development system, so. But the idea, the screen would be looking similar to that for the other applications. What is the most popular app? Okay, 10 minutes, yeah, okay, I'm closing to it, so okay. What is the most popular app? When you are testing, you might be treating all the 1,000 apps in an equal way, but there are some popular apps which are really crucial, which are really popular. So you want to know which one of those, which are those. The same information gets collected on the application level as an info record. So if you are looking at the application, for example, if you are supporting, resolving some issue as a support expert, you can immediately see, okay, this is crucial app because it is really frequently started by users. Scope group control. Yeah, once you have a list of the apps in scope, through the apps usage report, you can see what actual apps are started. So if there is an app in the system which is not in scope but appears on the list of the frequently used apps, that means that you have something which is not in scope, which happens very frequently. It's easy to come up with an idea for a custom app. Okay, let's have a custom app. This is a huge impact on the cost of the project, so you want to control that. So you don't want to have like 100 custom apps, because this means, okay, you can quickly maybe create an app, but later you have to maintain it. There must be a person responsible. So you have to be really careful with when choosing that you want to create a custom app or extended standard app. With an app usage report, you can immediately see, okay, there are some apps which are started and they are not in scope. Okay, any questions so far? We are closing to an end. I have just a couple of words, but if you have any questions, go ahead.
What do you make the difference between the configuration layer and the customizing layer? Because you can create things.
Oh yeah.
The customizing that we don't see in the screens, that this has been created there or changed in the customizing.
Yeah, it's assuming that it's in configuration mode. So it's a client independent. Yeah, we encourage all the customers to have it client independent. So yeah, it's not taking. It's always taking a customizing. If it doesn't find in the customizing in the config mode, I'm not sure whether it looks in configuration. So no, it's just configuration mode. Yeah. The tool is free. It's on GitHub for everybody to download. As I said, we are open to contributions. You can help us also by following our content on LinkedIn, on SAP community. There is a tag Fiori Tracker, a couple of posts about this. And it's also in App Center, SAP App Center. So if anyone is interested, have some experience, would be great if they could share them, rate the app. This would help a lot. Use cases are described on the page, and there is an online manual which we update frequently. So most of the functions, most of the details and questions, they can be resolved by the link to this help Fiori Tracker org. So that was it from my side. Yes, go ahead.
Which license the agreement belongs to?
Apache license. Yeah. So you can also change it.
How does the plugin extractor work? Is it like an RFC function?
Yes, it's a simple RFC module.
Do you need a trust relationship between someone and which system on the
Yeah. You need to create a RFC connection, yeah, for that, and then the entry in the config of Fiori Tracker for that RFC destination.
And is that also extensible?
Yes. Yeah. You can pull any data. You can extend it. Of course, yeah, either with us or you can do it by yourself. But then it becomes your own solution, only with you. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sure, it was already asked. So apologies. The app details, like semantic object,
Yeah.
so that is in the system, right?
Yes.
The number of the Fiori app, not right? So do you
No.
query the Fiori app license, or do you manually
When you create,
everything,
when you
or do you get basic content?
yeah, when you create an entry for an app, you decide what's the ID, and then semantic object and action. So when you importing, it will also suggest the ID, but you probably need to update it to be in sync. And then if you set the type as a standard Fiori app, it will assume that it's in a library and it will generate a link for it. So it's not connecting directly, it's just referencing a library based on those factors I just said. Okay, I think we are out of time. So if you have any other questions, I'm still around. Go ahead, ask me. Thank you very much.